4 of the 5 licenses have now been obtained, and because of coursework purposes, I've had to put this off again for a few weeks. Now we are going to do Sector 2 of the driving missions, which, FYI, will be the 3-lap battles. So this is my current progress of the game so far, and of course, for some strange reason, the licenses don't really count towards the overall game completion for some reason, but that's by the by. And after looking through when I first bought this thing, I have driven a total of, if I recall correctly, 67 miles since I bought this thing. And I gotta say, that's actually pretty good. Especially since I've only driven just over 250 miles altogether. So, let's begin with part 2 of the driving missions. Because I figured since we passed the International A license, I might as well get on with something that will earn me some decent money. As we will start in New York, and where we will be driving the Toyota 2000 GT. Some of these, I'm pretty sure I'll get them easily, but other ones I think will be a bit harder than others. But here we are. So we're on the streets of Manhattan to open up the 3-lap battles. And in terms of some of the cars we have up, against us, we have the Isuzu 117 Coupe, the Mitsubishi GTO MR, and of course the Mazda Cosmo Sports. So, let's go. And let's get moving before I waste any more of your time, before actually racing. So, here we go. With 3 laps around New York, and we're pretty much doing the same thing for all these other tracks as well. And since I just got off of playing Tourist Trophy, even though I'm pretty sure this video will most likely come out before the Tourist Trophy finale that I did. I'm convinced in saying that a lot of you more or less show up to see my GT4 playthroughs, or my segments at least, above all the others. And I figured, well, hey, if I'm actually going to get to 600 subs before the end of the year, this might be my best shot of achieving that. So, I figured I might as well take a punt with this and go with GT4 by doing another few segments. And then afterwards, I will probably get back to WRC1. Didn't really need to upshift there, because I figured the corner was just up ahead of me, and also because, well, for want of a better phrase, sometimes you have to know when entering a corner when to upshift, and also when not to upshift. That's kind of what the thing is with me when it comes to certain corners, especially if they are literal 90-degree right-handers. But at this time, I'd say we're doing pretty good. And I am pretty much getting through these corner entries the way I want to. So, on the brakes nice and early, so I don't have any issues getting through Columbus Circle, Also heading past what I think is an Earth statue over there. And now heading back up the street, heading up towards the New York City Hall, which I think is that there, or that building there, and towards the Empire State Building, on the brakes, and heading past the Brooklyn Plaza Hotel. And at this time, I'd say we're not doing too badly. And I am managing to get through these corner entries the way I feel like I'm supposed to. I also figured that, well, because I have been putting this off now for a while, I figured I might as well spill this out in saying that the last time I tried to record this, my previous solid state drive, which was 500 gigabytes, before I upgraded to a 1 terabyte. Okay, a little bit forceful there with the Mitsu as I bolted down the inside, and now closing in on the Toyota. This, by the way, is a Toyota Celica. I think that's probably the first generation Celica, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm just 8 seconds behind the Mazda Cosmo. Can I catch him in time? We'll wait and see. I'm probably stepping on the brakes just a little bit earlier than I should be, but either way, I'm still managing to make up for time, so I think we should be okay. The way I see it. Okay, 5 seconds. And heading through Wall Street, and also heading towards the Plaza Hotel, which I think is this here, on the right hand side. And now I just have a few seconds between me and the Mazda up ahead. So I'm convinced in saying that I'll either get him on the straightaway or almost definitely before we reach the finish line. Which is basically what I'm trying to do here. Okay, 2.7 seconds. I'm going to be close, but I don't know how close. Just gotta make sure I don't fumble the entry here. Because if I do... Oh, he's got loose. This could be my shot. Round the outside as I head back up Times Square. And it looks like I've more or less got this one. Took me a last corner pass to get there, but I did pull it off successfully. P1 for the Toyota 2000 GT. Which is ironic because my birth year is 2000. Anyway, 1.7 seconds over the Mazda 111, over the Mazda 110S, which I'm also pretty sure is the Mazda Cosmo. Anyway, 10 grand for winning, didn't see the rest of the field. Oh, there's the rest of the field. So, 1.3 seconds over the Mazda 110S. Then it was the Toyota Celica 1600 in third, the Mitsubishi Galant GTO, the Nissan Skyline 2000 GT, and at the back we had the Isuzu 117. Now on to the other side of America, in the far west, as we are heading to Laguna Seca, and where we will drive a Ford GT race car for 3 laps around one of my personal favourite racetracks, Laguna Seca. Used to be known as Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, but these days it's known as WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So this is now attempt 3 at this, because, well, I gotta say, handling American race cars, especially around here of all places, it's actually pretty hard, to say the least. And I can definitely say it's very easy to lose control of these things if you get as much as a few centimeters offline, which unfortunately was what happened last time and why I was not successful. The run was going really good until I got on to the Rahal Straight on the last lap, and basically once I got onto there, that was when I knew my run was finished, because, to put it simply, I got loose and I basically kicked myself in the sand, which is ultimately what costed me the win. But this time, I pretty much know the aggression levels I need to set, and I also know where precisely to be quick and where not to be quick. So through the Andretti hairpin now for the second time. Hard to believe there's only a few corners here that have corner names, but either way, there we go. So, 10.7 seconds is the gap to the leading Dodge, and that's better still than my previous run, because I think I was, 10.9 seconds behind the Dodge when I got through Sector 1 last time. Really had to cut to the inside there so I wouldn't hit the Chevy. This is the Chevy Camaro LM race car that I'm now passing as we head up the hill into the corkscrew. I do manage to clear him. And now 3 rainy curve, and the gap is now 7.5 seconds. So, providing I actually get it right this time, I should be well on course to getting this pulled off on only my 3rd attempt. Because, well, my first attempt was poor, my second attempt was a lot better, until I got it wrong on the Rahal Straight. And then this attempt, I feel like, is going to be the charm, as long as I stay on the road long enough. Had to dab the brakes there so I wouldn't be caught out by the oversteer. And now it is just me and the Dodge Viper GTSR Team Orica. 1.7 second lead is what he currently has. So up the Rahal Straight, heading into corkscrew. I'm not going to try anything ballsy into corkscrew because I don't need to. The rainy curve is probably the best bet for me to pass him. So, going for the manoeuvre, didn't quite get it pulled off there, but I came very close to pulling it off. And in the slipstream, round the outside as we head through turn 11. Getting to the inside, I shut the door. And there we go, that's job done at Laguna Seca. By 1.4 seconds over the Dodge Viper GTSR Team Orica. Then it was the Corvette C5R third, the Chevy Camaro LM Race Car 4th, Celine S7 5th, and the concept Dodge Viper GTSR came home 6th and last, as I'm now back up to over 100 grand. Oh, what do you know, the Corvette did finish right before the fade. That's cool. But anyway, not going to save this replay. I know some of you would expect me to save this replay, but I prefer to do things a little differently. 3 laps around Opera Paris. And let's see how we go, as we are in the middle of a rally car battle. Of course, all of these are within the same power range as our Peugeot. Yeah, I think it goes to show that when you haven't been able to get round to playing this game for a few weeks, it's obvious to say where the mistakes will set in. And I think that's precisely what happened on the previous run. As in, it was going well until I basically got caught out by that one wall that was sticking out. It was basically I think it was the left-hander right before the fucking... It was basically the left-hander just after this long straightaway, where I basically got it all crossed up, and then immediately afterwards I was caught out by the outside wall that we're approaching here. That's this right here. I got caught out by that wall, and basically it sent me spinning, as I would have expected it would. But either way, it's okay, because I do have the time to make up for my mistakes now. So passing the Evo 4 now for 4th, and I'm closing in on the Toyota Corolla that's just up ahead. I can definitely say this attempt feels better than my previous attempt did, because I was a bit further up the road when I did pass the Toyota, and had to be a little bit aggressive there through the bus stop, but I did get it done. So, we move on. Just got 2 opponents to go now. Got the Ford Escort, or as I like to call it, the Ford Escort Cosy, and out in front there is also the Ford Focus, ironically the successor to the Ford Escort. Even though in terms of looks and design, I always preferred the Escort, personally. And that's mainly because, well, I just fell in love with the Cosy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love the Focus as well, but I think the Escort just does it a bit more for me than the Focus does. That's just my personal vantage point. I'm probably not the only one who feels that way. But anyway, 3.1 seconds is the gap to the Ford Focus. I am convinced in saying that I can catch him before the end of the lap. There's plenty of time for me to make up 3 seconds, as I am doing so quite quickly. 2.6 seconds is now the interval. So through the bus stop, and now up the straight, and now heading through this tight little hairpin. I'm also pretty sure the Eiffel Tower is not too far from here, but either way, I'm closing in on the Ford Focus. And not getting caught out by that same wall again. I make sure of that. And had to get aggressive there to pull off the dive bomb, but I did make it work. And it looks as though, second time around, I'm actually going to get it done. And there we go. In 4 minutes and 36 seconds, I've beaten the Ford Focus rally car. And the Escort has also just finished, as has the Corolla and the Mitsubishi Evo 4. And I don't think the Citroen made it to the line before the fade. Oh well, anyway. Three lap battles are down, and almost all of us finished that race. The only one who didn't finish was the Citroen. So, 2 seconds over the Ford Focus, 9 seconds over the Ford Escort, 11 seconds over the Toyota, and I think about 14.6 seconds over the Evo 4, if I'm not mistaken. You know what? I'm going to save this replay, just because I prefer to give myself the protruding image when it comes to clickbait shots. Also because, well, I did save a replay of a Ford, technically, in the last episode. Because, as I said before, it is a Ford Falcon. But, there we go. I've definitely missed making progress in this game. And that's because I've had to be busy with other things. This time driving the Plymouth Superbird. Seattle, by the way, is in the state of Washington. It's also home to both the Mariners and the Seahawks. Don't need to read the description. Let's get going in our Plymouth Roadrunner Superbird. I should also mention, the Plymouth Superbird basically is the Plymouth Roadrunner, realistically, from what I know. Of course, whenever a lot of people think of the Plymouth Superbird, they normally think of two things. They either think of the King from Cars, or they think of Richard Petty, because a lot of people know Richard Petty for driving the Plymouth Superbird. Even though he was also known for driving Dodges as well. The most dominant of those Dodges he drove being the Dodge Magnum, which, believe it or not, won him 10 races in a row in 1967, and he also went on that same year to win 27 times in the Cup Series. Although, back then, of course, the Cup Series ran a lot more races than what it does today. But yeah, Richard Petty does still very much hold the record, or most of the records, in the NASCAR record books. The man is practically untouchable with the records he has. He truly has, by all metrics, earned his nickname as the King. As I'm now passing what I think is the Pontiac Le Mans, and now closing in on the Mercury Cougar, which is basically a Ford Cougar, more or less, and up into P3 now, and closing in on what I think is the Dodge Charger Super B, if I'm not mistaken. And the car we have out in front of the field is the Buick Special. And he makes contact with both sides of the chicane, which gives me the running room, and now 4.6 seconds is the gap to the Buick Special. And we are doing good. I don't really know any of the attractions in Seattle, except for maybe the Mariners Stadium. But that's about it. So, up the hill, through the right-hander, getting a little bit loose there. 3 seconds is the gap to the Buick Special. And that's a wall. Not too surprising. Okay. But it's okay, because we still have another lap to go. And we are doing good. As I head past the clock tower, I'm going to assume that must be the town hall. And that's definitely a stadium I see there. I'd assume it's probably the Mariners Stadium most likely, because I don't know if Polyphony has ever gotten any actual shots of a football stadium. It probably is the Mariners Stadium most likely. Right there at the bus stop. And that's a wall. Somehow I did not get penalised for it though. I thought for sure there was going to be a penalty, but I'm so glad to say there wasn't. Even though I really did try to avoid it, as much as I possibly could. Still, I gotta say, the Buick definitely has a top speed advantage, which is why I haven't been able to catch him yet. So I'm really going to have to get the hammer down here if I'm going to catch him. He's very effective on the straightaways, but not so effective in the corners. That's where I seem to be stronger than him. He has the speed, but he doesn't have the cornering pace. Guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens next. But I am closing in. He's still got me beat on the straights, but I have him beat through the corners. So it's most likely going to be one of these corners here where I get the pass done. Little bit of contact there. Both of us get loose, but I do manage to hold on. I get the pass done. He's trying to do the switcheroo, but he's not going to get it. He's trying to do it. He pushes down the inside. I can definitely say he gave me a tush push there. And able to fend off my ground as we head through the bus stop now for the third and final time. And now got a 1.3 second gap. I think this is where I have secured it. Yep, I've definitely secured it now. His cornering speed is just nothing in comparison to my cornering speed. So there we go. Superbird is triumphant in the streets of Seattle, Washington. So then the Dodge Charger Super B 3rd, Mercury Cougar 4th, Pontiac Tempest Le Mans in 5th, and at the back it was the Plymouth Barracuda. I'm also pretty sure there's a Heart song by the name of Barracuda. But there we go. 4 missions down, and still 6 missions to go. And where this time we will be driving a Lancia Stratos. The absolute legend and lad that is ironically powered by the same engine that powers the Ferrari Dino. Obviously it's not a V12, but it is a V6. And a quite nimble V6 at that as well. But yes, believe it or not, this Lancia basically does run with the Ferrari engine, even though Polyphony weren't officially able to get the rights to Ferrari until I think it was Gran Turismo HD when they first got a Ferrari. It was either that or it was GT5 Prologue when they first did it. I couldn't tell you for sure, but I think it was GT5 Prologue when they first got the licensing rights to Ferrari. And even then, of course, originally those weren't the old Ferraris either, they were the newer ones. So heading through, I think that's Portier I just went through there. And in the tunnel, passing the Fiat 500. And now heading through this little chicane here. And now heading up the harbour straight into, I think this corner is called Tabac, if I'm not mistaken. And now through the bus stop around the swimming pool section. And now heading up to La Rascasse. There is the pit entry, and now through La Rascasse, the second apex, and slowly closing in on the Auto Bianchi that is just up ahead, and on the brakes, making sure that I try to pull it off as cleanly as I could. I think I more or less did that because I've cleared the Auto Bianchi A112. And now, heading up the hill, as we now head through La Massonnet, and now down the hill into Casino Square, and approaching Mirabeau for the second time. And now, we head through the old Lowe's hairpin. Even though they used to refer to that as being the station hairpin. And now we head through Portier. And now heading through the tunnel for the second time. As we are approaching the harbour chicane. And a little bit of contact there with that Alfa Romeo, but still able to at least keep myself on point. I must have just got away with that, but that's okay, because I am still on pace to catching the leading Alfa Romeo, for which I'm pretty sure the model that is leading is the Giulia GTA, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is. So through the bus stop at the swimming pool section, I can also see the diving board there, which is a nice little detail to have. Running a little bit wide there through the first apex of La Rascasse, and through the second apex, and now onto the front stretch as I now pass the other Alfa Romeo Giulia, or I think that was the Juliet. Anyway, so through Saint-Devote now for the last time, and now heading up the hill into La Massonnet for the third and last time, and now into Casino Square for the last time, and down the hill into Mirabeau we go. 5 seconds is the gap to the leading Alfa Romeo. I'm slowly but surely catching him. Gotta be really deep here because of how loose the car is. Now through Portier. And the second apex now. I'm closing in on the Alfa Romeo GTA in the tunnel. And round the outside, we head through the tunnel in second and come out of the tunnel the leader. I gotta say, that's very ironic. But there we go. I pass him just before the chicane, and now we head through to back for the last time, and now heading through the bus stop at the swimming pool section. Of course, many years ago that swimming pool section didn't used to be there, and 3 seconds is now the gap to the Alfa Romeo 1600 GTA. And there we go, through the Rascas, now onto the bus stop straight. And there we go. Win first try, baby! Like I did at Seattle, I think. 6 minutes and 19 seconds is what it took for me to finish that. So the Alfa Romeo Giulia GTA was second, and then we had the Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint Speciale in third. And then we had the Alfa Romeo Spider 1600 Duetto fourth, and then of course at the back, way at the back I might add, the Fiat 500, who was mainly just a field filler, and of course the Auto Bianchi as well. So that's now, I think that's 5 missions down now. So the next one we have is, it's at Suzuka. So we're now halfway through the 3-lap battles, as our next one takes place at Suzuka Circuit, and where all of us will literally be driving the same car, because we're both driving the same model, and also because we are all literally driving in the same paint scheme. So, here we are now for Suzuka. And we'll see how we go. I'm convinced in saying this will not be too hard to beat. Even though I do have to deal, unfortunately, with the fucking active stability management on the car for this one. So, where I could go aggressive previously with the cars I drove before, I don't think that's going to happen this time around, because, well, the active stability management is very much locked on for this. So, I don't know what to do in terms of actually turning it off. So we're heading through Dunlop now. I can definitely say that this time around, compared to when I was riding around here on the bike, I can actually go flat out through Dunlop this time, which is relieving to see, because I don't have to worry about the movement of the car as much as I do the movement of the bike. So we're heading through the hairpin now and up to 200R, which is basically this corner here. It's basically a long sweeping right-hander, more or less, as we now head into Spoon Corner. And putting myself in position to pull off what will probably be my first pass of the race, as we now get on to the back stretch right before 130R, giving myself a tow. Of course, all of us are pretty much driving the same car, and on the brakes for 130R, as we now head up through to Casio Triangle, which is these two chicanes here. And we'll see if we can manage to keep the pace going. So 11 seconds is now the gap to the leading Cup Beetle. and not able to get the inside pass, but that's okay, because I'm convinced in saying that I can thread the needle. Went a little bit deep there, but able to get the passing manoeuvre pulled off. He tries to shut the door on me, but I was already on the inside well before he tried it. And now we've got through the snake bends and now heading up through Dunlop and down into the Dagna section of the lap as we head through Dagna 1 and Dagna 2. And what's the gap this time around? Okay, 8.8 seconds. Can I manage to close that gap even more? We'll just have to wait and see. As we head through 200R for the second time now. And through Spoon Curve, also approaching some pylons as well. And all in all, we're doing pretty well, as we are on the backstretch now another time. And 6.6 seconds is now the gap, so I think it's fair to say that I am making up some pretty reasonable time as we go through 130R and now through Casio Triangle for the second time. Also heading under the Konami board, which I'm pretty sure is the name of a software company if I'm not mistaken. 4.7 seconds is now the gap to the leader. I am getting a slipstream from the Beetle in front of me. And heading through turn 1. And I think we're doing okay for now. So, up to the snake section once again. That's pretty much where we are. And it looks like I am going to close in on the Beetle probably well before the end of the lap. And right now, we are here to go to work. As we head up to Dagna 1 and Dagna 2. And got a little bit loose there on the exit of Dagna 2, but able to still hold my ground either way. And now through the hairpin now. Sorry, through the hairpin for the last time here in this race. And I've been recording this now for nearly an hour. Even though there has of course been some trial and error in between, but either way, things are going good as we head through the exit of Spoon Corner and now onto the backstretch here at Suzuka for the last time. And I think this is where I have at least a 1 second lead. Well, less than a second. But I now pull away as we head through 130R now for the last time. And through Casio Triangle as well. And now through the last corner, which I often think is Amusement Park Corner. And there we go. That's 3 first try wins in a row, as I won that one by 2.2 seconds over the second placed Beetle Cup car. And the top 3 all finished. That includes me, of course. But there we go. So, that's now 6 missions down, and 4 of us finished altogether. Gap from 1st to 4th being 13.6 seconds, or thereabouts. I should also mention we will ironically be driving the Audi R8 in the Super license as well at some point. And I'm also pretty sure this is the course that we're doing one of the time trials for the Super license at as well. I'm really not surprised to say that my first 2 attempts were pretty shit. Even though my second attempt was going better, basically heading through turn 1, I was trying to pull off a darting manoeuvre on the outside of the BMW, and as a result of me giving it too much speed, I wound up spinning out and basically crashing again. Something which I should mention is very easy to do with these prototypes, because you just have so much power underneath your feet. It's virtually 700 horsepower that you have to tame with these prototypes, and I can certainly say that, for want of a better phrase, they are a bit of an animal once you get into them for the first time. As I managed to pass the Nissan Motul Pitwork Z now for P4, and closing in now on the BMW M3 GTR. And yes, to some of you, I refer to that BMW M3 GTR. I know a lot of people know that car for Most Wanted, but I personally know that car because of what used to be the American Le Mans series. Although these days, of course, they call it IMSA, but at this time at least, I'm at least managing to hold my ground when it comes to handling these things. As I head through the carousel for the second time, and now up into this hairpin here. It's basically 2 right-handers mostly, as I'm now clearing the Panos Esperante. 7 seconds is now the gap to the Bentley Speed 8. There's definitely a somewhat oddball relationship between both of these cars, since they basically are, well, I guess you could say brothers, but both of these cars are very relatable to one another. I refer, of course, to the Audi R8 and the Bentley Speed 8, because, well, the Bentley Speed 8 was the only car that, I think from 2000 to 2005, that really stopped the Audi R8 from having the clean sweep. And the year the Bentley won the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I'm pretty sure was 2003. But the point is, both of these cars are Le Mans winners, and the Bentley Speed 8 was the only one that stopped the complete domination of the Audi R8 at the time. At least that was before Audi replaced it with the R10. But either way, the R8 definitely went on to become an icon for the decade. And it is fair to say that it was definitely good looking as well, to say the least. So heading through the final hairpin now here at Sonoma Raceway. And I have got this one by the rings. So there we go. 2 prototypes and more or less 3 American Le Mans series cars, including a GT500 car with the Nissan 350Z, I think anyway. So, 7 battles down. And now let's move on to Le Mans for battle number 8. But let's now move on to Circuit de la Sarthe, or in English, Salt Circuit 2, or Circuit de la Sarthe 2, or Circuit de la Sarthe 2, translated in English as Salt Circuit 2, according to this game at least. Even though realistically most people prefer to just call it Le Mans, because that's technically what the track is called, because it resides in Le Mans, France. And it's the Mercedes C9 that is leading us. And believe it or not, I'm technically driving the same track as well as the same car that I drove at the end of the International A license. Except for saying this time I'm going to be getting even more speed because there will be the power of slipstreaming involved in this. So, going good so far. I am managing to go high into the 230s as I head down this straight, which to put it simply is very fast. And closing in on my first opponent, which I'm going to assume is the Mercedes CLK. Oh, correction, it's the Panos. I'm also going to assume traction control must be on, because I would have expected there to be some sort of wheel spinning, but there wasn't. So I'm liable to assume that traction control is switched on for this. And that's why I did not spin the tyres as I came off onto the Mulsanne. So through Indianapolis, now heading through Arnage. It's either what I would say to be skid recovery force, or it's simply traction control. That's probably the main reason why the wheels are not spinning as much as they were in the license test I did with this thing. Oh yeah, by the way, this car is the Nissan R92 CP, if you're asking. Which, yes, for want of a better phrase, is another prototype. I probably don't need to keep shifting down to second. Okay, here's the CLK. Gap is now 20 seconds to the Sauber Mercedes C9, as I have now passed the CLK GTR. Of course, that is the predecessor to the infamous Mercedes CLR, which, for want of a better phrase, kept getting airborne during the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1999. Considered, of course, by many analysts for the time, and even for today, as being, ironically, racing's most bizarre accident. Even though the reason why it kept getting airborne is because, well, the nose design was abnormally long. And ultimately, because it was generating more turbulence than what Mercedes had initially thought it was doing, because there weren't any curvatures in the nose design, which is basically what keeps the prototypes down on the ground. Because there were no curvatures in that nose design, that was the main reason why the CLR kept taking off the way it did. In other words, there was nothing to realistically hold the nose design in place. And it basically kept taking off like a poorly designed airplane, more or less. Mercedes, by the way, has not come back to Le Mans ever since, for that very reason. And also because, well, they have a bit of an infamous history when it comes to Le Mans as a whole, to say the least. I will also leave a link in the description so you can find out a bit more about the CLR. But either way, it took me a while to fully understand what effectively caused the very bizarre accidents among the CLR, but once I eventually got a bit more of a read, or a simplified read over it, my understanding of it increased by a tenfold about why it kept taking off the way it did. And in all honesty, the story itself is still well documented even today, with it being probably one of the most infamous race cars to realistically take to the racetrack of Le Mans. 5 seconds is now the gap to the Mercedes C9 as I head through the Dunlop chicane, and I say that because there is the Dunlop Bridge just up above us, and I'm pretty confident in saying I'm definitely going to catch him well before the end of the lap here. As I said before, some of these battles are definitely easier than others, but other ones, they're a bit harder to get your head around. But yeah, as I said before, I will leave a link in the description below, so if you want to find out a bit more about the Mercedes CLR, then well, I will of course leave a link down in the description below explaining racing's most bizarre accident. But yeah, Mercedes' history when it comes to racing at Le Mans, as I said before, it's pretty infamous, to say the least. Especially since when it did come to grips with racing in the 50s, it was ironically the Germans racing against the Brits. In other words, it was mainly Jaguar versus Mercedes in the 50s. That's all I'm really gonna say, because I don't want to sound offensive in any way. But yeah, link of course to racing's most bizarre accident is in the description below, if you're interested. And I can definitely say the story is well documented. So now, on the Porsche straight now, and heading into the Porsche curbs now for the third and last time. I am pretty much well clear of the Mercedes now from what I can see, and it looks as though this is very much going to be mine for the taking. So stepping on the brakes there through that last curve, wanted to make sure that I was not going to have any trouble, and now through the Ford chicanes, and there we go, easy win. I'm also pretty sure I won that on my first try. But there we go. Is anyone going to make it to the line before the fade? And no. I'm not surprised. But there we go. Another 10 grand is ours. And now we just have 2 more battles to go. So we had 5 prototypes in that race, as well as 1 GT1 race car, I believe. But there we go. Just had to make sure you didn't hear me slurping. But here we are now with the Amuse S2000 for 3 laps of Suzuka. And now I am ready to take to the track for what's essentially another 1 make 3 lap battle, just like we had with the VW Beetles. This time we're now driving some tuned S2000s. Except for saying that we're all, of course, in different colour schemes. Felt a little bit of contact there, but that's okay, because I still feel like I have the speed. As long as I don't step on the brakes too much, I think we should be good. Little bit of contact there, but that's okay, because I make it through now to P2. And now, onto the start-finish straight. Closing in on the 3rd positioned. And I'm running wide. And that was terrible. But I somehow did not go any slower as I made it towards the end of the lap. Still, I gotta say, that previous battle at Le Mans, it was pretty easy. And maybe the other reason for that as well, because I have driven hundreds if not thousands of laps around Le Mans before, so I pretty much know my way around the 24-hour circuit. I could have sworn I just heard someone outside my window. Oh well. I don't think it really matters, because I have now taken the lead here at Suzuka East. And I'm pretty sure the active stability management is switched on, so I've got to be careful through some of these corners, but so far, so good. As we now head through the snake bands for the 3rd and last time. And hopefully we can do okay. So, doing good for now, and heading through the last corner. Don't really need to push it. I already have the lead. I've got a pretty sizable lead as well. And now we just have 1 more battle to go, as I won by 7 seconds over the green Amuse S2000. White 3rd, black in 4th, red finished in 5th. And then I think at the back it was the orange S2000. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's right. Oh, everyone did finish. Must have happened right before the fade. So, 7-second victory over the green Amuse S2000. Then it was white in 3rd, black finished in 4th, red finished 5th, and it was orange who finished in last. That's cool. Anyway, One battle to go, and that takes place at Tsukuba. And then, after this, we should get ourselves a pretty amusing prize car, if I do say so myself. And as to what that is, well, stay tuned to find out. But, here we are. 3 laps around Tsukuba Circuit, and where we are driving the Nissan MMR Cup car, which is basically a Cup version of the Nissan Micra, as we call it here in Europe, or the Nissan March if you live in America, or anywhere in the Americas if you will. So 4 seconds is the gap to the Honda NSX that leads us. I'm trying to find a way past this Evo 8, and I do so at the Dunlop corner, and now heading up towards the third hairpin here at Tsukuba, as I have now cleared the Mazda RX-7 and throw in the block on him, because while the Japanese sports cars may be faster than me in a straight line, they're not faster than me through the corners, because I'm technically driving a race car, and that's what I can use to my advantage against the Honda NSX that leads us here. So 1 lap is down, and we still have another 2 laps to go. 2.2 seconds is now the gap, or 2.25 seconds I should say was the gap, if we're being more specific, and under the Dunlop tyre bridge, and I'm slowly closing in on the Honda, so it's fair to say my pace at the moment is pretty good. And not going to get close enough to pull off a pass. He will blitz me on the straights, but I should be able to get him back again once we get through the corners. So heading through the last corner and steadily closing in on the Honda, as the gap is under 0.6. I go for a dive heading into turn 1, I make it stick, and just like that, I now lead this race. I'm also pretty sure this is going to be a close one, because we do have the back stretch to compensate ourselves with, as I head through this corner at 69 miles an hour. Nice. And it looks like I've now got a big enough gap out front. More specifically, a 1.7 second gap over the Honda, so I think it's fair to say I'm now well clear of the Honda to send off the 3-lap battles. And most of these I've managed to be successful with on my first try. So there we go. And that took me just under an hour and 30 minutes to get through that whole thing. Or an hour and 26 minutes to get through it. And almost everyone finished, but not quite. So, another 10 grand, as we are up by 100 grand compared to where we were at before. So, a 2.9 second margin of victory, or almost 2.9 second margin of victory. Okay, let me rephrase that. Oh hey, everyone did finish. Okay, so less than 3 seconds over the Honda NSX, the Mazda RX-7 FD, finished in 3rd. Then we had the Subaru Impreza sedan Spec C, finishing 4th, followed by the Evo 8 GSR, and at the back we had the 99 Skyline GTR. Cool. Now we move on to our prize car for beating these battles. And that is a pretty amusing one, if I do so myself. Because we get the Jay Leno tank car. Ironic to say that they actually made a car named after the garage tuning juggernaut himself, Jay Leno. He is also known, of course, for being a chat show host. Or at least he used to be. But he's still very much involved in car culture, Jay Leno. So, there we go. Another 10 missions are down, and next up we have the Slipstream battles. Which, by the way, I'm not going to be doing for a while, because there's a few other things I have to do first. So, we've now unlocked Tahiti Maze, and of course, because I switched the autosave on, that of course is what happens when the game autosaves. And I have saved a replay as well, and we gained 1.7% of progress in the end of that. And another 2500 A-Spec points, as I'm now up to 6900 nice and 10 points. Even though it doesn't really change my wins losses record because it doesn't realistically count. But anyway, here it is. Apparently 901 horsepower in the Jay Leno tank car. And we can sell this thing for 212,500 credits. Which is, well, that's a lot. However, I'm obviously not going to do that because, well, this thing is big. And I mean it is chungus big. And because it is chungus big, I'm obviously keeping it. And also because, well, this car looks really cool as well. So, you know, it is what it is. And I love it for that. Unfortunately, I'll never be able to drive it. Unless I really wanted to do something with it, but anyway. There we go. So, those were the 3-lap battles of the driving missions. And next time, we will be getting started with the professional events. Coming in the next episode of GT4.